All right. Good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome into the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive home for all things WNBA and women's basketball. Joining you folks tonight on a freaky, fresh, funky Friday two-man game tonight here on the WNBA 365 Network. Doing folks alongside our trusty correspondent, Crystal Thomas, up from Los Angeles. Cal McClure joining you folks here from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego. Crystal, 3 games tonight and a whole weekend of games ahead of us. Other than that, how's it going tonight? Good to see you.
It's going well. Kind of tired, but I am good.
And by the way, folks, we will have a program alert for you folks concerning Crystal, presumably later on in this program. But again, folks, as a friendly reminder, once more, we will be off air from June 19th until June 26th. Coming up here in just a couple of weeks. And again, we'll be off air as well for 2 separate weeks, too, in July and August. As always, folks, Facebook, Twitter, live chat box wide open for discussion for tonight's games. And any news you want to bring to our attention or questions, comments, or concerns you may have, facebook.com/WNBA365, on Twitter at WNBA365, at CalamaC3, or at Pup1010, hashtag WNBA365, or find the chat box on the YouTube live viewing page in the right corner of your screen. Crystal, 3 games tonight, 1 news story, and 6 games for the weekend slate, and we'll get out of here on the evening. With that, Crystal, first game tonight, the Lynx and Mystics, and of course a matchup between 2 very smoking red-hot teams lately, but it was really, Crystal, was not much of a game, if you ask me. The Lynx rolled the Mystics tonight, 98-73 from our nation's capital, led once again by our reigning network player of the week, Sylvia Fowles, 21 points, and Lindsay Whalen, folks, surpassed Swinny Cash for the most regular season wins in their career. She now has won her 295th game, I should say, as a player for Minnesota. Taylor Hill, 20 points, and Ivory Lotta, 15. EDD DNP set up the game with a what we were told was a growing injury, according to some sources with the knowledge of the situation. So, Crystal, obviously a game built up based on long winning streaks, but Crystal, in reality, major snore fest, major blowout for the Lynx again, who remain unbeaten. And also, Crystal, in a very, very empty phone booth in our nation's capital at Verizon Center. Crystal, your final takeaway for this game this evening, obviously, 2 teams that were playing that have played some really good basketball over the past weeks or so. But as we saw tonight, Crystal, Minnesota, still that team to beat, regardless if they have the championship ring for last season or not. And Washington, without EDD, even with EDD, Crystal probably would have had the same fate today. But what did you see, though, from tonight's game?
Well, for one, yeah, I will say Verizon Center has been very empty this season, even though their team is, I wouldn't say they're red hot, but even though their team is doing pretty decently, you would expect to see a lot more people in that arena, especially, with them adding EDD and Chrissy Tolliver. But it seems like nobody in Washington is interested in that at all. I think there was talks and conversations last year about Verizon Center being so empty, and they even were thinking about like taping off the upper deck of games to make it look like more people were there. But it seems like even with that idea, nobody's watching that game or nobody's going to that game. Especially, you would think so, especially with Minnesota in the house. I mean, Minnesota's a really good team. I don't know if even if EDD was playing, if this game would have went differently. I do think it probably wouldn't have been. No, it probably would have been a blowout. Yeah, I don't think it would have went any differently. I can see this going either way. You can actually see a lot of struggle in Washington's reduction. I mean, they don't have a lot of scoring on their team, and you can see it today. I mean, nobody could really get it going like that.
Crystal, I'm sure we'll talk about the arena situation in D.C. probably in a later time and day. We might squeeze in if we can tonight, but obviously, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, regardless if Deladon was playing tonight, I just don't know if Washington would have had enough firepower or weapons to take down this Minnesota juggernaut, Crystal, who, again, I think is probably going to get up to another 18, 19, 20, 21 or no start, because they just played that well through these 8 games. They've, as we said, they've won close games. They've won those blowout games, Crystal. But again, I still think, though, a lot of it goes back to Sylvia Fowles' play. And again, we talked about it too, and that's why the voters last week gave her the Player of the Week award for the network, and they 51% of the vote, Crystal. But again, she is really showing why she's a front runner for MVP and why she's played so well so far this entire season. And in reality, Crystal, I agree with you, though, in regards, again, obviously a hyped up matchup, but again, Washington just too little, or just not enough here. this evening here tonight. But again, the Mystics faltered to the Lynx 98-73 this evening from Verizon Center in our nation's capital. To the next game, Crystal, the Storm and Fever in a grind-out, drag-out game. The Fever with another upset, Crystal. They knocked off the Seattle Storm tonight 93-90 from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Jewel Lloyd, 25 points for Seattle in the loss. Brianna Stewart chipped in 23. Erica Wheeler, 19 points, pacing the Indiana offense, along with Natalie Chanwa chipping in 17 as Brianne January was out tonight due to an Achilles injury. And also lost in the shuffle tonight as well is the Sue Bird for the Storm, moving into 9th place all-time on the WNBA's all-time scoring record. So, Crystal, this is probably one of the better games, I think, on the menu tonight. Obviously, the Fever without Brianne January still find a way to win a very close game, and obviously this had gone back and forth all night. Crystal, let's actually start with Seattle tonight. Obviously, Sue Bird, surefire Hall of Famer in a few years when she does retire, has been the cornerstone of that franchise since she was drafted there back in the early 2000s. Now, Crystal moves up to 9th all-time on the scoring list, passing Delisha Milton-Jones. Crystal, overall thoughts on Sue Bird's historic night in spite of the loss for the Storm tonight?
You know what? When it comes to Seattle, I'm not surprised that they they didn't win this game, but I'm not surprised that they were in this game at all. Seattle was one of those tricky teams where you can't get too comfortable if you're up ahead. You have to kind of finish them off while you can, because if not, they will creep back on you. And, there was a point where this game was going back and forth. I mean, there was some times where Seattle was up. There's sometimes Indiana was up. And ultimately, as you can see, Indiana came out with the W. And I believe it was, I can't remember because there was so much going on today, but I think it was a great defensive stop at the end from Indiana, which prevented a 3 being shot. I can't remember exactly, but it was when you have, a legend and a future Hall of Famer on your team like Sue Bird, I'm not really surprised that in games like this.
So, Crystal, I think more so the story is Indiana. So again, a team, really somewhat scuffling from game to game, of course, as we've mentioned, 100 times on here, it seems like. But again, new coach, new system in place. But for them to pull off 2 upsets, they take down the defending champs in the 3rd game of the season that they played, then take down a Seattle team that's been red hot as of late, of course, and has had a great start to the season. Crystal, what can 2 wins like this for somewhat of a young team like Indiana do to boost their confidence?
You kind of already said it when you said boost their confidence. It lets them know that they can hang with the best of them. Their problem is consistency. They have to be more consistent when it comes to winning these games against tough opponents. But it proves to them that it can happen, that it is possible, that they can beat strong teams like LA or Seattle. Hopefully in their case they can beat. But for them being young and getting wins like this, it definitely helps them feel better.
KT, I want to stay with the Fever real quick because it was 2 players that obviously have somewhat been role players with the Fever the past couple seasons. Erica Wheeler, who's somewhat been on somewhat of a rotating wheel, no pun intended, of teams in her career so far, kind of pinballing around between teams. And Natalie Chanwa, of course, who was drafted but missed some time with that injury. And they chipped in between 17 points for Nat and 19 for Wheeler tonight. And obviously playing without Brianne January, of course, who was banged up. According to Kevin Messenger from the Fever's PR department, had a injured Achilles tonight. But Crystal, what does that, I guess, say about the Fever and perhaps their depth right now? Obviously seeing 2, somewhat underrated players chipping in big points tonight in a very big win for this team.
It pretty much means they're starting to piece it together, and their other pieces are starting to work. When you're down Brianne January, and obviously Timmy Ketch's retired, and you have to kind of figure out, okay, who else can we get production from? It's good to see Wheeler and especially Nat. I've been waiting to see Nat have some pretty good games for a while now. So to see that those 2 are actually playing well and playing better, if you're a Fever fan or even if you're in the Fever organization, it kind of gives you some insight on, okay, maybe these 2 people can help us along down the stretch, or maybe these 2 people can be the difference makers, especially when it comes to tough grind-out games like this.
So again, Fever outlast the Storm in a great game from Indy tonight, 93-90. Last game of the night, Crystal, those Sparks and Wings. LA lets another major lead go on the road. They faltered to the Wings in Arlington, 96-90. With that, though, they did, get a combined 53-point effort out of both Neko Ogumake and Candace Parker. Ogumake, 28 points. Parker, 25. Glory Johnson, though, savior of this game for the Wings, 24 points. Skylar Diggins-Smith and Kayla Thornton, who also had a major role in this game for Dallas, 13 each for Sky Dig and Thornton in this contest. So, Crystal, with Los Angeles, and again, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. This is somewhat alarming seeing this team lose 2 games on the road, both Indy and now Dallas, squandering major leads at certain points. And obviously, Crystal, I think I said this before and I'll say it again, but when you have not been, the top dog in your league since 2002, you lose your traction and you forget how to play it like defending champions. So far, Crystal, we can probably all say that LA's played subpar so far this season, minus their 3 wins at home so far out of their 4 so far in the season, having, of course, won 3 of their wins being at Staples Center with Seattle, Washington, and then winning, of course, a couple days ago against Chicago at home. But Crystal, I mean, in reality, what are your thoughts about the LA team so far? I mean, obviously, some panic, I would assume, out of the LA fan base and maybe a little bit out of the hangout here, perhaps. But overall thoughts, I guess, about seeing LA once again collapse on the road, losing another big lead late in the ballgame.
Well, for me, there's no panic because the season's still early. There's definitely a season left. I will say that they have been playing kind of mediocre. I mean, they don't look like – there's a lot of games where they don't like defending champs at all. And then there's games where they come out and they play like, okay, we can understand why this team won. I think my biggest problem is not the fact that they lost, but how they lost, because there's obviously going to be some losses in the season. Even Minnesota's going to lose a game or two. I mean, they're not going to go 34-0. I mean, it's not – I don't know who they're going to lose to, but, I mean, expect it to happen. But it's more so I just didn't like how they lost. They came out strong, and something about that second half. I mean, something about that third quarter and that second half that just kind of makes them pump the brakes a little bit. And they have to do a better job of that, especially this year now. Teams don't like LA. Teams never liked LA, especially before they win a title. And then it's like now that they've won a title, they have to realize that teams are going to be gunning for them even more. So they have an issue with keeping leads in games, and something goes on in that third quarter where they kind of just get stagnant. And if they can fix that, if they can control that, and I think they'll be a better team. But like I said, it's no panic for me. It's still early. I still think LA will be a top team. I mean, I know right now they're like 5th or 6th, but I have a feeling that's going to change eventually. But I mean, for me, like I said, there's no panic, but they definitely got to get it together and start playing a little bit stronger.
Crystal, I wouldn't say I'm panicking being 111 miles south of Los Angeles in regards to how the teams played, but I think I'm more alarmed and maybe a little bit concerned how they have dropped 2 hefty leads on the road, obviously losing the game against the Fever a couple of weeks ago in Indianapolis and losing this one tonight down there in Dallas. But again, in spite of that, Crystal, I do though want to point to Odyssey Sims, of course, who came back Tuesday and had a breakout game tonight against her former club tonight. And obviously we had talked a lot about, her time in Dallas being somewhat resentful, towards Fred Williams and her time there. Crystal, I think in your mind, I mean, of course, you and I have traveled the road and been there. How good of a feeling does that leave, or does it leave inside of a player knowing that they had a great game and above all had a great game against a team that gave up on them probably a little too soon in regards to Sims playing great tonight versus Dallas?
I mean, because they lost, I don't think it really feels that great. I mean, yeah, you had a good game, but you took home an L. I mean, you'd rather have a good game against an old team than a win. It's one thing to have a good game against a team that you used to be on that probably didn't work out, but they got the last laugh ultimately because they won. So she probably isn't really thinking of it like that because they lost. Now, if she would have won, then, I think it would have felt a lot better. But because of it, I mean, it probably doesn't mean anything to her right now.
So, Crystal, now to the Wings again. Now, I kind of had a rough feeling in my stomach. Obviously, this 2-game road trip for LA is loaded. Of course, Dallas tonight, tomorrow in Phoenix, of course, and renewing the rivalry for the 21st season again against the Phoenix Mercury tomorrow at TSRA. But for Dallas tonight, Crystal, Glory Johnson, Skylar Diggins-Smith stepped up in big situations. Again, they combined this evening for 37 points. But also, Crystal, how about Kayla Thornton, though, in 2 games between the Mystics on Tuesday and then tonight, has really, I think, somewhat kind of put her name on the map in a small role. Obviously, she had a lot of great defensive plays in the game against Washington they ultimately came up short with. But Crystal, is it kind of, I guess, refreshing seeing some new faces across the league, like Kayla Thornton, or even like Achanwa, and even as well with Wheeler? Is it kind of cool or awesome seeing some of these, underrated players kind of, stepping into the spotlight for maybe the first time, really in a big moment for themselves?
It's cool to see young players start to get a little playing time and start to play well. You always want to see young players get involved and start getting more confidence and gaining more. I guess you would say gaining more comfortability in the league. So I think it's pretty cool to see Thornton do her thing out there.
Crystal, one quick question from a fellow 365 network out there, the 365 Sports Network, the Global Sports Informative, writes in. They say, big Mercury fan here. What are your guys' thoughts on the team so far? Crystal, I'll start with Phoenix real quick by saying this. Obviously, if you have Diana Taurasi on your team, you're going to have a chance in every game. But I think, though, that a lot of it, though, Crystal, stems from how Brittany Griner has really played the past 2, 3, 4 games. I mean, the career high 38 points a couple games ago. I mean, she looked like she's somewhat back in her Baylor days a little bit. Obviously, we haven't seen any flashy dunks so far yet. Knock on wood, we'll see a couple hopefully this season. Maybe you'll get a couple in Seattle during the All-Star game. But Crystal, I still think, though, there's some small holes with Phoenix, but they have really, though, have played a lot better basketball the past couple of weeks. In my mind, obviously, between Diana Taurasi and the broken three-point record, of course, she's still chasing plenty of other records along the way. But it looks like that they have improved in areas, but still, though, are still having a couple of weak links in their game, either on the offensive front, either some forced shots, spotty defense still here and there. But Crystal, what have you seen, though, from Phoenix so far through their sample size of games that you have liked or maybe disliked so far from PHX?
Well, I'll say they're rebounding. You would think with having the tallest center in the league that your rebound would be a little bit better. Their three-point shooting is kind of off and on. Their perimeter defense could be a little bit better. I mean, overall defensively, what everyone would expect them to be. I mean, they're defending the team, especially in the West. But I mean, obviously, when you and Taurasi working together, they're a dangerous team. Especially when you have Robinson and Leilani Mitchell on the court together as well. I mean, we've seen that together they could do some damage, especially when they get in rhythm and especially Leilani with her threes.
Crystal, I agree with everything. Of course, perimeter D has been spotty. Of course, rebounding probably the biggest discrepancy so far, of course, and that's been brought up plenty of times, Crystal, is how can you have the tallest player in the league and how can she not be in the league in rebounding? Of course, that's obviously been one factor as well. But I think, though, that Phoenix is going to be in a good spot and they'll be in the thick of things throughout the entire course of the season. With that, Crystal, some Olympic news for you folks. And if you have not heard the news, but again, the Summer Olympic Games in 2020, as early as 2020, will now feature the 3v3 version of the game of basketball. What I heard, at least on local news today, will be 1 10-minute quarter and played until someone reaches 21. So, Crystal, obviously, Michelle Smith, or Michelle Vopel, I should say, from ESPNW.com, put out a pretty interesting tweet about what 3 players will be on your team. Now, Crystal, you and I were just discussing before the show, but this probably is not going to feature the regular national team, as we mentioned. Again, they will, though, be keeping the traditional 5-on-5, traditional Olympic tournament. But, Crystal, what's your overall thoughts, I guess, on the Summer Olympics adding the 3v3 tournament? So, of course, this year in Tokyo or in 2020, we're going to be having baseball coming back and softball coming back. But now, Crystal, 3-on-3, 21, or played a 21 style basketball now, Crystal. What's your overall thoughts and stance on this new game?
Well, it's actually not new as far as being in. They've actually had Team USA 3-on-3 tournaments. It's normally with like the college kids, like 21 and under and stuff like that. They just haven't had it in the actual Olympics, but they've had like kind of like Olympic tournaments, if you will. But I think now them actually implementing it to the Olympics would be pretty cool. I feel like you see a lot of competition because it's just 3-on-3. Each team would probably, I think, have 4 people with, so they have 1 sub. But it'll be interesting to see, who actually is the best out of the world. I mean, this is 3-on-3. You really don't have much space to work with. You're playing half court. Like you said, you're going to 21. It's traditional basketball that you'd be playing if you're in the neighborhood. So it's going to be pretty cool to see what happens.
And important to remember, folks, and it's important to remember again, folks, it's just 1 10-minute quarter or until someone reaches 21. So whoever is further along and does not reach 21 by the time expires will win the game for this. But again, Crystal, at least what we brought up here, and again to kind of ask. I mean, obviously, Michelle Volpel is all over the national team going. So either DT and Candace Parker and Big Sil on one team. But again, Crystal, is this probably going to be more of somewhat what it would be like for baseball coming back, at least, where it would not be Major League Baseball players, or in this case, it wouldn't be WNBA players partaking, Crystal? Would this be more of a mixture of perhaps the 18 and 19, as you mentioned? Would it be more of the under 18s or the other national teams we do have for certain age limits playing, or would it perhaps go towards the pros and maybe even college kids? What would you probably think?
I think it'll for sure go to college kids first. It might expand to pros, but I think college kids are probably going to be the ones that they try it out with first. Pros, maybe. I think it would depend on who. I mean, maybe it'll be the people who didn't make the national team, and maybe it'll be like, okay, well, we'll play 3-on-3 since we can't play the national team, so we can still represent our country. But I don't think the pros will do it right away. I think it'd be more steered for college kids first.
Crystal, one more question. By the way, it's Justin writing in from the 365 Sports Network, the Global Sports Informative. He says, thanks for the insight on the last question. One more question, Crystal. We'll go to you on this one, KT. Justin wants to know, which rookie has been impressing you so far this season?
Alicia Gray, definitely. She's been playing with so much poise out there. She doesn't force her shots. She knows where to find her teammates. She doesn't really, she's a true guard right now. I mean, she does what she has to do to get people open. Shot that's given to her, not just any open shot. She's probably been the most impressive to me so far.
Crystal, I'm gonna bid one more dollar than you, like they won on The Price is Right, and actually take both Gray, and I think I have to throw Kayla Davis in there too. I mean, her rookie debut was really good for Dallas. Obviously with 20 points in the win over Phoenix in the first game of the year. But I think just those two together have really been a very good, tandem so far. I think, obviously, what we had talked about, I think, Crystal, plenty of times was how the Sims and Diggins relationship didn't really work out well. So far for Dallas, I think that the Gray and Davis relationship has worked out pretty well so far for the Wings. Again, they got the big win over the Sparks tonight after coming back being down by double-digit figures tonight. But I think I'd go both Davis and Gray on that question. And again, Justin, thanks for the insight and thanks for the question too. This evening, Crystal, 6 games on the weekend schedule, 3 on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. We'll start with the Saturday games first. Dream visit Connecticut tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening. Crystal, what do you got for us?
I think Atlanta gets that one. I think they get back on track after dropping one to Washington, and I believe they lost to New York, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I think Connecticut doesn't have Alex Bentley. They did just sign Fitzgerald, who is actually might be pretty good for them. But I just don't know if Connecticut will have enough firepower.
Chris, I'm going to go with you on ATL again. Sadly, I picked them when they lost to New York a couple of games ago, but they've kept that game pretty close for the time being. But I think, though, that as we mentioned, again, the Sun losing Bentley for the time being with the Euro tournament, also Crystal as well. Sue Fair just put out a story about the Sun leaning on Courtney Williams now to somewhat be the leader for the team while Bentley has gone overseas so far. But I think ATL definitely gets back on track, and they'll take the game over the Sun. From Mohegan Sun in Unkinsville, CT. Crystal, next game on Saturday, Sky and Stars, 2 teams that are obviously vying for victories. The game will be in San Antonio at AT&T Center. Crystal, what do you got?
I want to say Chicago, but I wouldn't be surprised if I almost called them Seattle. San Antonio, sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio picked up their first win against Chicago because of how they've been playing. But I'm going to go with Chicago. It's probably going to be close, though. Crystal,
this may be, and I think Marquez Anderson, our good buddy, would agree with us, that this was probably going to be the Stars' really last good chance to get their first win before they get into the teeth of their schedule. I like Chicago, Crystal. I like them because the way they played Los Angeles on Tuesday was really impressive, obviously, for a team that's only won 1 game so far, Crystal. And they were, you were at the game, Crystal. They were in that game wire to wire up until it kind of dragged out there in the last 30 seconds. But I'll give Chicago a victory on the road in San Antonio. Last game for the night on Saturday, Crystal. For the 21st season, it is the best rivalry in the WNBA, historically at least. Sparks and Mercury, round 1 of 3 from Talking Steelers Arena in downtown PHX. All right, Crystal, these two rivals took up again for the 21st season in a row. What do you got?
I actually, believe it or not, I actually don't have a pick for this game. I mean, I know who I want to win, but I actually don't have a pick for this game. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I will say, though, if Brittany Griner and played her defensively well, if they play her well defensively, because sometimes if you could take Griner out of the game, have a chance, but at the same time, you still have Diana Taurasi back there. So I think the key to – I'm going to do it like this. The key to Phoenix winning is definitely playing defense, hopefully getting Brittany Griner hot and hopefully getting Taurasi going. And I think that they'll, be able to win this game. The key for LA to win is definitely playing better defense, definitely rebounding, definitely not putting the brakes up the second half when they have a lead. Definitely better shot selection. I think that's a lot of the reason why LA lost today. After a while, their shot selection got bad. So I'll do it like that because I know I want to win, but it could go either way. So I'd rather do a keys to what they need to win instead of picking an actual opponent or, team to win.
Sorry, folks, giving an X. Crystal, in reality and also in recent years, Los Angeles has not played well at America West, U.S. Airways Center, Talking Steelers, whatever the arena is called, Crystal, at least in the past 3 years or so, maybe 4 years, the Sparks have just not played well in Phoenix. Obviously, we can go back to the 2014 postseason where, of course, they were a mere possession away from stealing game 1 from a 29-win Mercury team. Got swept there too during the regular season. Lost two games there last season as well. I think, Crystal, that just in reality that LA has just not played well in the past couple of years in Phoenix. That's why I'm giving the Mercury victory. And plus, Crystal, if in fact LA reverts back to old habits, much like the second half tonight, and if DT gets hot, LA is going to be in trouble, and it's going to be a Mercury victory if in fact the Sparks feel like they did this evening. But for at least for right now, give me Phoenix right now at home at the Purple Palace down there in PHX. Games on Sunday, Crystal. 3 more for you. First up, Fever at the Mystics. What do you got for us in this one?
You went to the middle. I was expecting you to say Liberty at Storm first.
I wrote it in wrong on my stat sheet over here.
Fever at Mystics. Well, I think that team I think that game can go either way because we saw how Indiana kind of doesn't give up. We kind of if Indy can get hot, then I can see the Mystics. The Mystics losing this game, but if maybe the Mystics gets EDD, they could probably pull it off. But we don't know if EDD will be back at that time.
Crystal, I'm going with Indiana regardless of what happens here. I think that Washington was really exposed this evening in regards to Minnesota just, uprooting them this evening in regards to how the game finished tonight. And I think that with the Fever coming off, of course, of knocking off Seattle, and then as well with that LA victory just a couple of days ago, that also I think helps out the Fever as well in regards to boosting their confidence as well. So Indiana, this matchup, you guys can catch that game, by the way, on WNBA League Pass, or if you are in the DC area, over on CSN HD, on CSN Mid-Atlantic over there. Crystal, next game, we'll go to the next game. The Lynx and Wings will be taking on each other from College Park Center down there in Arlington. Crystal, what do you got for us in this game if you're there? All right, Crystal's having some problems right now, so I think she'll be back in just a second. But again, folks, actually real quick, the 3-game schedule, by the way, for you folks. On Saturday, again, is the Dream and Sun. Sky will visit the Stars, and the Sparks visit Phoenix. On Saturday, the 3-game schedule for Sunday is Indiana, Washington, Minnesota, and Dallas, and Seattle and New York. Just in case you're curious, the Storm and Liberty game will start at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the first game up on the menu of games for Sunday. Again, here this evening. And as we do wait for Crystal, folks, real quick, also, again, as a friendly reminder, again, folks, we will be off air all coming up in roughly 2 weeks or so, again, starting up on June 19th. And we'll be off air until June 25th and June 26th. All right, Crystal, again, next game is the Links and wings, what I have written down here. Again, I know I screwed that one up, but again, links or the wings, what do you got?
I'm sorry about the delay for a second.
No
I apologize.
We've had worse, don't worry.
You said I could actually see Dallas, pulling through and beating Minnesota. Will it happen? I don't know. Dallas, again, is another team that's like Indiana, that if you get them in the right spot, they can kind of figure it out and kind of, play hard. I mean, they did it. I mean, LA was up on him. I will say Minnie is a little bit better at holding leads against teams when they're up, but we have seen this season where they've barely won games by like 2 or 3 points, because the same thing, as LA, they kind of put their foot in the brake and let teams just get back in it. But I'm going to go with Minnie because obviously they're the better team, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas, some kind of strange way, pulled it off.
I also have Minnesota too, Crystal. I just think that obviously Minnesota has more talent, I think, or at least more weapons, at least talent-wise, than Dallas. But like you, I wouldn't be surprised because, Crystal, we know pretty well that it's going to be a team that is not going to be favored by anybody, not just us, but not favored by anybody to beat Minnesota, and they're going to beat Minnesota and prove us all wrong. Last game, the first game on Sunday, but the last game on my schedule, at least, Crystal, again, Storm and Liberty. What do you got for us?
These are pretty two evenly matched teams. I'm going to go with Seattle, though. We'll have enough juice just to pull it out. I think this will be another close game, but I have a feeling that Tina Charles is going to take a lot of shots, which is going to equal to, as we always say, probably burn out during the playoffs. But I'm going to say Seattle, and I feel like it's going to be a pretty close game.
I got Seattle as well, Crystal. I think that you just took the words right out of my mouth in regards to, again, New York relying so heavily on Tina Charles, of course, as of late, and maybe, of course, that could be their death sentence for this game. But again, folks, to recap your weekend schedule, on Saturday, Dream at Sun, Sky at Stars, Sparks at Mercury, all on Saturday. Sunday games of note, Storm at the Liberty, Fever and Mystics, Lynx and Wings. All 6 of those games can be seen on their entirety on WNBA League Pass Store. Please check your local listings for games in your local television market. Crystal, get to the other program alert we teased at the top of the show again, Crystal. There's a major event happening sometime or in late July next year. And what more can you say about where you're heading next month?
The All-Star game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more to say, but I will be attending the All-Star game in Seattle this year. Pretty excited to see, I guess, what goes down, what's going to happen. I mean, that's all I got. I don't know what else to really say about it.
So again, Crystal, so the All-Star game, of course, folks, again, July 22nd from Key Arena in Seattle, Washington, tip off roughly, I believe, at 12:30 p.m., presumably on ABC. We'll have more about that, of course, when we get closer to that. So, Crystal, I know that I think we talked not last year, but the 2015 season on the network about ways we could probably improve the All-Star game. We ran a poll question, too, over the offseason, and people had chimed in. We had a major, great turnout for that poll question. So, Crystal, I know that we have lobbied a lot for either a skills contest, or a three-point shooting contest, or even a little Legends and Celebrity exhibition game before, or someone make it like NBA All-Star Weekend. Crystal, if you had the choice of adding a event or adding something to the All-Star Weekend for the fans in regards to regardless of what it is, Crystal, what would you add or bring back and why?
I could only add one of it.
You can add whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I would add a skills challenge, a 3-point challenge, and I mean that might be it. I mean, I wouldn't want them to have like a little game or anything because I feel like that'd be a little bit too much. But skills challenge, 3-point challenge for sure, and maybe a longer fan fest because I know they have one, but I don't know how long. But that's probably the only thing I'd add for sure is a 3-point challenge and a skill challenge, like they used to have.
Yeah, Crystal. Last year I attended the Major League Baseball All-Star Week festivities. Of course, we had the All-Star game in San Diego last season. The Padres hosted and did a phenomenal job last year. I was very proud of my hometown for the job they did with that last year. And Crystal, I mean, it was literally 3, 4, 5 days of just absolute mayhem, but it was 5 days of just unbelievable stuff. I mean, from the Fan Fest held at the Convention Center held downtown, we had concerts on the Bayfront. Of course, we had the Home Run Derby and the actual game held in San Diego. And Crystal, having gone to Fan Fest with Major League Baseball those 2 days and then going to the Home Run Derby, it was amazing because not only for what you got to do not what you got to do with Fan Fest, but Crystal, you get to meet so many, of course, meeting fans, but of course, Crystal, meeting fans from other teams that he may not, of course, like or root for. I mean, my dad, brother, and I were sitting we're sitting next to a row of a family who were Cub fans who come out to the game, and they were telling us, "Hey, we love your city. We've had a great time." But Crystal, if I'm going to add anything to the WNBA All-Star Weekend, I'm definitely adding a Major League Baseball All-Star Fan Fest type event. Have it at the Convention Center down in Seattle, have it in Tacoma, have it somewhere nearby, and bring back all the alumni, Crystal, because you were really able to get really hands-on with either trophies or meeting broadcasters and former players. So I would definitely go with the Fan Fest experience because it was a great time here, at least for Major League Baseball, but hopefully the W can add something. But folks, we want you folks to chew on this over the weekend. What events or what would you do to improve the WNBA All-Star Weekend festivities? Let us know on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll probably talk more about this on Tuesday when we are back on air next Tuesday. We will, folks, be off air this upcoming Monday and be back on air on Tuesday, June 13th. With that, folks, Crystal, we're ready for the night. How about final thoughts on tonight's 3 games in the WNBA? What do you got?
I think today's games, all the games today pretty much showed some competition on a certain level, except for that Washington mini game. I mean, that game kind of was just over before it started. But from the Fever game onto the Dallas Sparks game, I think there was some pretty good basketball today. Very competitive. I mean, I feel like it's kind of just shows you what to look forward to and where everybody is and how far everybody's trying to go as far as fighting for those 8 spots to get into playoffs. I mean, it's serious, and everyone's kind of. I mean, it's still early, but it's not. I mean, there's like 7 games in, so we're starting to get to that point where what teams are, and you're going to see, pretty much what their identity is. And I think it's just been pretty interesting so far.
Crystal, it's simple as this. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day in the WNBA, Crystal. Obviously, presumably a lot of people picked Seattle to win. They lost to the Fever. I assume a lot of people had LA winning the night. They lost to Dallas. I'm sure people had Washington upsetting Minnesota. They lost to Minnesota. So I think it's pretty much, Crystal, that you're seeing, obviously, it's, once again, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And that's what it's somewhat been like, of course, for the past few sample sizes of games that we've seen so far this season. But again, folks, to recap your scoreboard for Friday: Lynx 98, Mystics 73, Fever 93, Storm 90, Wings 96, Sparks 90. 6-game schedule starting on Saturday: Dream at Sun, Sky at Stars, and the Sparks at the Mercury on Saturday. Sunday games of note: Storm at the Liberty, Lynx and Wings, and the Fever and the Mystics. All those games over the weekend. And again, folks, once more, off day Monday for us back here on Tuesday night. And also, as one final reminder, we will be off air all the week of June 19th to the 26th due to vacation for all of us here at the network. With that, folks, we'll see you folks back here on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, folks, and good night. This has been the WNBA 365 Network. Good night. Bye-bye.